Millions of men stand in front of a mirror and erase something that took millions of years for evolution to build. Most of them never stop to ask why it exists in the first place. Because to us, it's just a beard. But what if it isn't just hair? What if it's one of the oldest biological signals the human body still carries? Here's the strange part. Humans are one of the least hairy mammals on Earth. Evolution stripped fur from almost our entire body. Then suddenly, it stopped. It left one small patch untouched. A patch that seems to do the exact opposite of what evolution was trying to achieve. That shouldn't exist, unless the beard survived for a completely different reason. And if that's true, then the real story isn't about why humans lost their fur. It's about why evolution refused to remove the beard. We still have roughly chimpanzee-like hair follicle density. What changed was what those follicles produced. Our body hair became shorter, finer, and far less visible, while our ability to sweat became extraordinary. Humans have dramatically higher eccrine gland density than chimpanzees and macaques. So, evolution didn't exactly remove the machinery. It changed the output. And that creates a much bigger mystery. Because if evolution was trying to make us cooler, why didn't it remove all the hair? Why keep the hair on your head? Why keep your eyebrows? Why keep your eyelashes? And most strangely of all, why did men evolve a thick patch of hair directly around the jaw? The beard isn't an accident sitting at the edge of the story. It may be the clue that changes the entire story. For millions of years, our ancestors were becoming increasingly upright and active in environments where overheating could be deadly. Running and walking generate internal heat. Sunlight adds more. And sweating only works if that sweat can evaporate. So reducing dense body hair could have made evaporative cooling more effective. It's one of the leading ideas for why humans became so unusually hair-reduced, and this is where the famous persistence hunting idea enters. Perhaps some early humans could use endurance, tracking, and heat to pursue prey over long distances. But here's the part most explanations leave out. Persistence hunting isn't the missing magic key. Scientists still debate exactly why human body hair became so reduced. Because if overheating alone explains everything, there's a problem. Plenty of animals live in hot environments. Plenty run, plenty sweat, and they're still covered in hair. So maybe the real story isn't heat caused humans to lose fur. Maybe heat was only one pressure in a much larger evolutionary trade. And the first clue is sitting directly on top of your skull. Your scalp is covered in hair. That seems like a terrible design if the goal was to cool down. But recent experimental research reveals something fascinating. Scalp hair can reduce the amount of solar radiation reaching the skin underneath it. In other words, the same hair that can interfere with sweating can also protect your head from the sun. And tightly curled hair can be particularly effective at reducing solar heat gain. Suddenly, the apparent contradiction disappears. The human body may have been doing something much more sophisticated than simply getting rid of hair. It was balancing two competing problems. Lose enough hair to dump internal heat. Keep enough hair to block external heat. And that's why the scalp makes sense. Eyebrows and eyelashes make sense too. Protection around the eyes. But then we reach the jaw. And the logic breaks again. Because a beard isn't protecting your skull from sunlight. It isn't helping sweat evaporate. If anything, it's hair in exactly the place where the hair loss story should have continued. So why did evolution stop? Here's where things get really strange. A beard doesn't appear gradually in the same way as ordinary body hair. For men, facial hair becomes dramatically more pronounced around puberty, when androgen activity rises. And when people see a heavily bearded male face, they don't just see more hair. They perceive a different social signal. Research consistently finds that bearded men tend to be perceived as more masculine, dominant, aggressive, older, and more formidable, particularly by other men. Notice what's missing from that list. More attractive. Because that's where the popular explanation gets too simple. The beard may not have survived merely because women liked beards. Some evidence points towards something potentially more important: male competition. A beard could make a face look more formidable without changing the underlying jaw. And in a world where you constantly had to assess strangers, rivals, allies, and potential threats. A signal that worked from across a clearing didn't need words. But there's another possibility, and this one is darker. The human jaw is vulnerable. And researchers have proposed that facial hair may have provided some protection during physical fights. This isn't just speculation pulled from nowhere. Experimental work using mammalian skin and hair found that thick hair could absorb and disperse more impact energy than shaved or plucked samples. The researchers suggested this could have provided some protection to the jaw and lower face. But don't misunderstand this. It does not prove that beards evolved to stop punches. It suggests something much more interesting. The beard may have had more than one evolutionary advantage. Imagine the selection pressures stacking together. A beard makes a man appear older, more masculine, more dominant, more formidable. And perhaps it provides a small physical buffer during violent encounters. Now, the beard isn't just decoration, it's a combination of signal and shield. But we're still missing one piece. If this was such a useful male trait, why doesn't every man have the same beard? Because biology doesn't build perfect signals. It builds signals that work often enough to matter. Genetics, androgen signaling, age, and individual variation all affect facial hair growth. And importantly, beard thickness isn't a perfect biological report of testosterone, strength, or fighting ability. People can simply perceive a bearded man as stronger or more dominant, even when the beard itself doesn't accurately predict his actual physical ability. And there's another fascinating twist. Facial hair preferences can change depending on how common beards are in the surrounding population. When beards become rare, they can become more attractive. When everyone has one, their advantage can shrink. So perhaps the beard isn't a fixed message. It's a context-dependent signal. And that leads to the strangest part of the story. Because eventually, humans learned how to turn the signal off. Think about what happens when you shave. In less than 2 minutes, you erase a biological feature that took an enormous evolutionary history to develop. Your ancestors couldn't choose. You can. You can grow it, trim it, shape it, or remove it completely. And that means something extraordinary happened. A trait that may once have been shaped by survival, competition, protection, or sexual selection became something humans could consciously manipulate. The biology stayed, but the meaning became cultural. Today, a beard can say rugged, professional, rebellious, older, younger, fashionable, traditional, or absolutely nothing at all. The same biological structure can carry completely different messages depending on who is looking at it. And that brings us back to the original question. Humans didn't simply wake up one day and become hairless. Most of our body hair became reduced and miniaturized, while hair was retained or modified where it could still provide useful functions. The scalp can help protect the head from solar radiation. Sweat allows the largely exposed body to lose heat. And facial hair became something completely different. A potential social signal, a marker of sexual maturity, a possible competitive display, and perhaps even a small protective layer. We don't know that one of these explanations alone created the beard, and that's important. Because evolution rarely leaves us a single clean answer. It leaves us a pile of pressures, and one strange surviving trait. So the real mystery isn't, why did humans lose their fur? It's this. Why did evolution make most of our body hair almost invisible, while turning one tiny patch on a man's face into a biological billboard? Maybe the beard began as protection. Maybe it was competition. Maybe sexual selection helped preserve it. Maybe several pressures worked together. We may never be able to separate every thread. But tomorrow morning, when you stand in front of a mirror and pick up a razor, remember what you're actually looking at. Not just hair, a signal, a structure shaped by millions of years of evolution that humans eventually learned how to switch off. Your ancestors couldn't choose whether to wear it. You can, and that may be the strangest thing evolution ever gave us, a biological signal we learned to edit ourselves.